So, whenever I apply for something online or over the phone, like a job or school, the first thing I wonder when the communication ends well is, oh dear, do they know I'm black? I mean, did I type or speak too code switched? Maybe it's just me, but even though I'm not white, I don't wake up black. I don't yawn and roll out of my bed a fully actualized weight of history and slavery and disenfranchisement and oppression and racism continuing drain on society, black African American. That shit doesn't happen till at least after I've brushed my teeth. And usually not till I step out my front door. So, will I go for the official interview and be greeted with wide, perplexed blue eyes because I'm just so darned, as my mother's generation put it, tall? Because it's pretty much like I said, I'm not black sitting at home in bed. When I step out the door is a different story. One that starts and ends with my skin as far as the world at large is concerned. Unsurprisingly, I tend to prefer phone interviews to in-person ones. Even if I have to ask myself that question again, do they know I'm black? Actually, do I? I'm horrible at being black. I don't feel any connection to or a kinship with Tyler Perry movies. I laugh at them and not with them. I'm so horrible at being black, I'd rather listen to Nick Drake than Drake. I'm so horrible at being black, Devo excites me more than DMX. And my favorite female musical artist of the moment isn't from the Southland, but from Iceland. And no, it's not Bjork. I mean, it's like I didn't even read the owner's manual that came with my skin. Also, I have a condition that black people aren't supposed to be susceptible to: mental illness. My earliest memory of being crazy is when I'm about 4 years old. I spend an entire afternoon lying on my mother's bed, staring up at the ceiling and grinning. I'm wallowing in a bliss deeper than anyone has ever known. At the ripe old age of not yet 5, I've learned to make my own fun. But this is more than having fun. I'm dazed with euphoria, high on my own feelings, and it's fantastic. It's joyous. Perfect. And then it ends. Suddenly, surprisingly, sadly, it stops. I'm left beached and stranded on the shores of myself, mourning a joy so transcendent, even an iota less feels like the very bowels of hell itself. I go from breathless ecstasy to sobbing with despair, curled into a ball, my eyes squeezed shut. This is a working definition of crazy, though I don't know it at the time. I don't know it because growing up, I'm taught, through example if nothing else, that black people don't do crazy. I'm taught that by black people, that counseling and shrinks are for rich, self-indulgent white people. Black folks are made of sterner stuff. We've evolved and adapted to have a bootstrap mentality. We don't get help for our problems from outsiders, no matter how well-meaning. We pull ourselves up by ourselves. Mind over matter, racial dignity above all. But the bootstrap mentality fails me. It's not for lack of trying, but still there's more depression and mania. There are suicide attempts and lots of therapy and medication. And at 34, I have a full-on nervous breakdown and land in Benedictine Hospital's psych ward. During my 8-day stay at Benny's, I make friends, whose names I'm changing to protect the guilty by association, who become my boon companions on a Dante-esque journey that's equal parts Purgatorio and Inferno. There's Helen, who's gentle, sweet, and loves only 2 things more than her 2 children: Jesus and Neil Young. There's Shauna, a mother as well, young, motivated to get better, and afflicted with a lasting and deep mania. Melanie, tall, blonde, and silent, is my roommate, and she likes peeing and pooping with the door to our shared bathroom open. Once, she wakes me up screaming at the top of her lungs and running up and down the hall of the ward. She's fun. And last but not least is Darren, a young, self-described Ryan Gosling lookalike. He hears voices and has a tendency to anthropomorphize inanimate objects, such as throw pillows. He also harkens back to the days of Tsar Nicholas and King Leopold II of Belgium, as if he were actually there. Of the many faces and names I collect in that week, I remain closest with Darren, who gives a strong impression that I am the first black friend he's ever made, let alone the first Coco Loco one. I think our shared mental illness, which includes psychotic symptoms, is a source of endless surprise for him, as well as the fact that I can and do stand toe-to-toe with him on matters of history, literature, and philosophy. I intrigue him like a dog that suddenly stood on its hind legs and begun to recite passages from Anna Karenina in the original Russian. I'll mention some piece of literature or history or philosophy, and he'll blink and say something like, "You're an atheist? You're an existential nihilist? You like Kafka? You're an Anglophile?" As if he's shocked, and I'm sure he is, that a black person not only knows of such things, but has a definite and strong opinion on them. I feel compelled to be both a good example for my people and confound and scandalize him in equal measure. I make sure to mention my interests that are in direct opposition to his as often as possible. I start calling him Wilhelm and Werther to tease him about his love for the last kings of Germany and Prussia. It's fun and funny to me, but it's sad too. I still do it sometimes, but not nearly as often. I come to wonder if the medical staff at Benedictine finds me as baffling a patient as Darren does a friend. It's likely that I'm an anomaly to them for not embodying that wonderful old stereotype of the strong black woman. Trademark. Never realizing that of those three things, I'm only truly one of them. Maybe it's because I know I'm not supposed to be crazy that of the 5 of us in our little group, I'm the sanest presenting, granted a sad commentary on all our respective states. But I'm obscurely proud of the fact that I voluntarily checked into the Straitjacket Hotel and don't scream once during my stay. Still, my bootstrap mentality is small and trembling and malformed, practically non-existent, because black people who are good at being black just don't do crazy. Craziness implies facets of personality and character that we, the black monolith, are rarely allowed. If you speak relatively well despite being black, and aren't delusional enough to try to nibble on the wainscoting of random houses despite being crazy, people tend to assume that you're mentally sound enough to carry on without a hitch, that nothing could be wrong with you that isn't easily explained by the weaknesses and vicissitudes of your race, that you don't need help even when you're crying out for it, because black people are too one-dimensional to be crazy. Where one-note songs sung to the key of old Negro spirituals about bearing up under and suffering being the lot of the meek, the old bootstrap mentality in all its fine fettle. And even when we are allowed, black crazy is different from white crazy, a belief that's shared by whites and blacks alike. Black crazy is a result of drugs or poverty or conspiracy theories about being kept down by the man. White crazy can be a result of anything from bad parenting to existential angst, or even just resulting from an epic bad day at work. And that kind of crazy excuses all. Crimes and misdemeanors, hate speech and bad behavior, unspeakable acts of abuse and serial murder. With insanity as with everything else, white people are allowed their reasons and facets, their inciting incidents, their layers and quirks. People of color, blacks especially, merely have excuses for disturbing behaviors that are considered racially anomalous. It's not fair. Also, it's not true. I'm here to break it to you. Being black is not all black things to all black people. I'm not horrible at being black. There is no monolith of blackness, not as it relates to mental health or taste in music or anything else. I'm living proof of that. Thank you.